O.J. Simpson's will, which he signed just a few months before his death from prostate cancer at age 76. Jim Murray tells us what it shows.
The news reports faded from the screen, voices heavy with finality, repeating the same name that once echoed through stadiums and courtrooms alike. The headlines spoke of an ending, but they could not explain the silence that followed, the uneasy feeling that this was not simply the death of a man, but the closing chapter of one of the most unsettling American stories ever told. Beneath those announcements lay a life defined by triumph and terror, by charm and violence, by a legacy forever caught between glory and blood. The mystery truly begins on June 12, 1994, a warm Los Angeles night that would fracture American culture. Two bodies were discovered outside a quiet condominium, brutally slain. Their deaths immediately drawing attention to a former football icon whose smile once sold cars and whose name once meant excellence. What followed would not only destroy a man's public image, but expose deep fractures in fame, justice, race, and celebrity worship. Welcome to Starlet Mystery. To understand how Orenthal James Simpson reached that night, the story must rewind decades earlier, to a childhood shaped not by privilege, but by pain. O.J. Simpson was born on July 9, 1947 in San Francisco, California, the son of Eunice Simpson, a hospital aide, and Jimmy Lee Simpson, a cook who would later abandon the family. His early years were marked by instability, poverty, and violence. When his father left, the absence carved a wound that never truly healed. Even more formative was the physical hardship of his youth. A childhood illness left Simpson with bowed legs, requiring leg braces that made him a target of ridicule and isolation. For a boy who would later become synonymous with speed and power, those early years were defined by vulnerability. Growing up in the Potrero Hill housing projects, Simpson was surrounded by crime, gangs, and survival instincts. According to those close to him, he learned early that strength commanded respect and weakness invited danger. Football became not just an escape, but an identity. By adolescence, his physical transformation was astonishing. The braces came off, the speed emerged, and the boy, once mocked, became feared on the field. During his teenage years in San Francisco, Simpson flirted dangerously with street life, even joining a local gang for a time. A brief incarceration at a youth detention center in his teens could have ended his future before it began. Instead, it became a turning point. A counselor recognized his athletic potential and pushed him toward structured discipline, steering him back to school and football. It was a fragile crossroads, one that would define the rest of his life. Simpson enrolled at City College of San Francisco, where his athletic dominance quickly set him apart. His performances were electrifying, but his ambition burned even brighter. He transferred to the University of Southern California, stepping onto a national stage that would transform him into a legend. December 6, 1968, O.J. Simpson won the Heisman Trophy, college football's highest honor. It was not just a victory, but a coronation. He became the symbol of unstoppable excellence, a young man who appeared to have outrun his past. The applause, the cameras, the adoration fed something deep within him. Fame did not merely arrive. It embedded itself into his sense of self. In 1969, Simpson was selected first overall in the NFL draft by the Buffalo Bills. Professional football elevated him into the American consciousness. Week after week, he delivered performances that seemed almost mythic. His speed, vision, and charisma turned games into spectacles. By 1973, he achieved one of the most extraordinary feats in sports history, becoming the first NFL player to rush for over 2,000 yards in a single season. Earning the NFL Most Valuable Player award on December 16, 1973. But behind the accolades, pressure mounted. Fame magnified every impulse, every flaw. According to those close to him, Simpson demanded control in his personal life, just as he did on the field. He married Marguerite Whitley in 1967, and together they had 3 children. Publicly, the family appeared polished and stable. Privately, cracks were forming. Rumors persisted that Simpson's temper and infidelity strained the marriage beyond repair. Tragedy struck in August 1909 when Simpson's daughter, Erin, drowned in a family swimming pool just days before her second birthday. The loss shattered the family. Grief seeped into every corner of Simpson's life, and shortly afterward his marriage collapsed. The divorce was finalized in 1979, leaving behind unresolved pain that would echo through his later relationships. As his football career waned, Simpson did something few athletes successfully achieve. He reinvented himself. Hollywood welcomed him with open arms. He appeared in films, television shows, and commercials, most famously becoming the friendly face of a major rental car company. By the early 1980s, he was no longer just a former athlete. He was a mainstream celebrity, accepted into elite circles, celebrated for his charm and approachability. In 1985, Simpson met Nicole Brown, a young woman working as a waitress in Beverly Hills. Their relationship quickly intensified, fueled by glamour, wealth, and imbalance. They married on February 2, 1985, and had 2 children together. To the outside world, it was a fairy tale, but according to police reports and court records, the marriage was marked by volatility, jealousy, and repeated domestic disturbances. Behind closed doors, something darker was taking shape. Calls to law enforcement became frequent. Bruises appeared. Fear replaced affection. Some believed that fame shielded Simpson from accountability, allowing patterns of behavior to continue unchecked. Despite divorcing in 1992, Simpson remained obsessively tied to Nicole, unable to relinquish control over a life he once dominated. By the early 1990s, the man who once represented American success was living 2 lives, one bathed in nostalgia and celebrity privilege, the other steeped in paranoia, rage, and unresolved trauma. Friends later described him as increasingly unstable, his charm masking a volatile emotional core. All of it was building toward that night in Los Angeles, toward the moment when admiration would curdle into suspicion and a nation would be forced to confront the terrifying cost of idolizing its heroes. In the next part, the story crosses the threshold into infamy. The murders, the chase, the trial that stopped the world, and the moment O.J. Simpson ceased to be a man and became a symbol of something far darker. Under the glow of streetlights and the quiet hum of a sleeping city, the fragile balance holding O.J. Simpson's life together finally collapsed on June 12, 1994. Just before midnight, Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ronald Goldman were brutally murdered outside her condominium in Brentwood, Los Angeles. The violence was sudden, intimate, and ferocious, leaving behind a crime scene so disturbing that even seasoned investigators struggled to process what they were seeing. Almost immediately, whispers turned into shockwaves. The past refused to stay buried. The name that once symbolized athletic perfection was now bound to blood. By the morning of June 13, 1994, detectives began focusing their attention on O.J. Simpson. The evidence felt circumstantial, yet unsettling. A history of domestic violence, a relationship defined by obsession and control, a timeline filled with unanswered questions. When police attempted to question him, Simpson was strangely absent. What followed would become one of the most surreal spectacles in American history. On June 17, 1994, as millions of viewers across the nation watched in disbelief, a white Ford Bronco crept along Southern California freeways. Inside was O.J. Simpson, a former hero turned fugitive, holding a gun to his own head, while his friend Al Cowlings drove. The slow-speed chase unfolded live on television, interrupting NBA Finals coverage and freezing the country in collective disbelief. This was no longer just a murder investigation. It was a national obsession, unfolding in real time, blurring the line between tragedy and entertainment. When Simpson finally surrendered later that evening, the transformation was complete. The smiling pitchman was gone. In his place stood a man accused of a crime so brutal it defied reconciliation with the image America had embraced for decades. The arrest was formalized on June 20, 1994, and the stage was set for a courtroom drama, unlike anything before it. The trial began on January 24, 1995, and from its opening moments, it became clear this was not merely a legal proceeding. It was a cultural reckoning. Cameras broadcast every expression, every objection, every tear into living rooms across the world. The prosecution presented DNA evidence that seemed overwhelming. Blood matching. Simpson's genetic profile was allegedly found at the crime scene, in his Bronco, and on his property. A glove, dark with blood, became the symbol of the case, both damning and controversial. Yet, the defense dismantled the narrative piece by piece. They questioned police integrity. They exposed procedural error. They framed the investigation as tainted by racism and misconduct, particularly within the Los Angeles Police Department. The testimony of Detective Mark Furman, whose recorded racist language was revealed in court, became a devastating blow to the prosecution. Trust eroded. Doubt spread like a virus. As the months dragged on, the courtroom transformed into a psychological battlefield. Simpson sat silently, rarely speaking, his face oscillating between stoic calm and quiet desperation. Some believed he was a victim of a corrupt system, targeted because of his race and fame. Others believed they were witnessing a master manipulator hiding behind charisma and wealth. The truth became secondary to perception. On October 3rd, 1995, after less than 4 hours of deliberation, the jury delivered its verdict. Not guilty, gasps rippled through the courtroom. Across America, reactions fractured along deep cultural and racial lines. Celebration and outrage existed side by side, exposing wounds that had never healed. Simpson walked free, but freedom came at an immeasurable cost. Though acquitted criminally, the shadow of the murders never lifted. In February 1997, a civil jury found Simpson liable for the wrongful deaths of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman, ordering him to pay $33.5 million in damages. Financial ruin followed. Assets were seized. Fame curdled into infamy. Invitations vanished. The man who once moved effortlessly through elite circles now lived under relentless scrutiny. In the years that followed, Simpson drifted through a strange half-life of notoriety. He gave interviews that many found chilling in their detachment. In 2006, he released a book controversially titled, "If I Did It," a hypothetical account that many interpreted as a confession thinly disguised as provocation. Public outrage was swift. The project was condemned as grotesque, further cementing his image as a man disconnected from remorse. But the descent was not yet complete. On September 13, 2007, Simpson was arrested in Las Vegas for his role in a botched attempt to reclaim sports memorabilia, an incident that quickly escalated into charges of armed robbery and kidnapping. This time, fame offered no shield. On October 3, 2008, exactly 13 years after his acquittal in the murder trial, O.J. Simpson was found guilty on multiple felony counts. The symbolism was impossible to ignore. He was sentenced on December 5, 2008, to up to 33 years in prison. As the doors closed behind him, many felt a grim sense of inevitability. For some, it was justice delayed. For others, it was a tragic confirmation that the story had always been moving toward confinement. The man who once outran defenders and doubts alike could no longer outrun consequence. Simpson spent nearly 9 years behind bars before being granted parole on July 20, 2017. When he emerged, older and quieter, the world he returned to no longer wanted him. His legacy was frozen, defined not by records or awards, but by a single night that refused to fade from memory. In the final part of this story, the journey reaches its end. The last years, the final silence, and the question that still lingers long after the headlines stop scrolling. The years after prison did not bring resolution. They brought a quieter kind of exile. When O.J. Simpson walked free on July 20th, 2017, the cameras were there, but the applause was gone. He stepped into a world that had moved on technologically, yet remained frozen emotionally when it came to his name. Social media had replaced court television, but the verdict in the court of public memory was unchanged. Wherever he went, the past arrived first. He settled in Las Vegas, choosing a life deliberately small. Golf courses became his refuge. Occasional videos appeared online, filmed casually, as if he were an aging athlete offering harmless commentary. Some believed these moments were attempts at normalcy. Others believed they were performances, a man still unwilling to confront the gravity of what his name represented. According to those close to him, Simpson rarely spoke about Nicole Brown Simpson or Ronald Goldman. Silence became his final defense. Financial pressures never fully disappeared. The civil judgment from February 1997 loomed over him, until the end, legally unfulfilled, yet morally inescapable. He survived largely on a protected pension from his NFL career, a detail that fueled lingering anger among those who believed accountability had never truly arrived. Even in freedom, he lived confined by history. Health issues began to surface quietly. By the early 2020s, reports circulated that Simpson was battling serious illness. He avoided public appearances, and when he did surface, his once commanding physical presence had diminished. The speed that defined his legend was gone. The charisma that once disarmed audiences now felt hollow, like an echo from a different era. His final public communications came through brief online messages, casual in tone, almost unsettling in their normalcy. There was no reckoning, no confession, no cinematic closure. Just the slow erosion of relevance. A man fading while the questions around him refused to do the same. On April 10, 2024, O.J. Simpson died in Las Vegas at the age of 76 after a battle with cancer. The announcement was met not with mourning, but with reflection and division. News outlets reported the death with careful language, unable to separate the athlete from the accused, the icon from the infamy. Once again, his name dominated headlines. Not for what he achieved, but for what he symbolized. In death, the arguments reignited. Some remembered the records, the Heisman Trophy, on December 6, 1968, the historic 2,000-yard season, sealed on December 16, 1993, the smiling face that once felt safe and familiar. Others saw only the brutality of June 12, 1994, the white Bronco on June 17, 1994, and a verdict delivered on October 3, 1995, that forever altered public trust in justice itself. O.J. Simpson's legacy is not singular, it is fractured. He became a mirror reflecting America's deepest contradictions, fame without accountability, race entangled with justice, entertainment colliding with tragedy. His trial reshaped media, transforming courtrooms into spectacles and tragedy into serialized consumption. It exposed how celebrity can bend reality, how narratives can overpower evidence, how truth can become negotiable when fame is involved. Some believe the full story was never told. Some believe it was obvious all along. What remains undeniable is the emotional wreckage left behind. Families shattered, faith eroded, and a cultural scar that never healed. Simpson did not just fall from grace. He dragged the concept of grace down with him, forcing a nation to confront how easily it elevates its heroes and how desperately it resists holding them accountable. In the end, O.J. Simpson did outrun many things: poverty, obscurity, early failure. But he could not outrun time. He could not outrun memory. And he could not outrun the night that defined him. The news reports announced his death and then moved on, as news always does. But the silence that followed was heavier than the headlines, because some lives do not end when the heart stops beating. They linger, unresolved, suspended between what was loved and what can never be forgiven. And somewhere between the cheers that once shook stadiums and the sirens that pierced a Los Angeles night, the mystery remains.